for group 1 examinations, right? You're looking for, your target is the group 1 examinations, right? If not group 1, then you'll start thinking about the next level, that is the group 2. But the thing is that you need to achieve, you need to get either group 1 or as a case of the group 2 examination. The question is that you have got two things as of now. One is the TSPSC group 1, and I think some of you even are even from the case of APPSC also. So APPSC group 1 or as a case of TSPSC group 1. Now the question is that, do we have any particular similarity between the science and technology part related to TSPSC or as a case of APPSC? The answer is yes, we have got some similarity, right? Now, before going into what is TSPSC group 1, TSPSC science and technology, group 1 science and technology, or else what is APPSC group 1 science and technology, before we go into that one, first and foremost thing, what is science and technology? Any idea about science and technology? Now suppose that the moment you say Indian polity, so everyone, we all have an idea. So there, in case of your polity, you are going to discuss about the Indian Constitution, the powers of the Prime Minister, the powers of the President of India at the same time. So what is the executive, what is the judiciary, at the same time the different schedules of the Constitution, on all these particular things, right? At the same time the amendments which are coming, which are a part of that one. Now that is what you discuss in case of polity. The moment you start about the case of your economy, you have a basic idea. In case of economy, you're talking about the case of the GDP, national level GDP, the state level GDP, at the same time the per capita income, at the same time the infrastructure, and all these particular things, right? Now the question is that, what is science and technology? So what are we going to discuss in case of science and technology? Now if you talk about the syllabus, or else if you talk about the thing that is mentioned in the TSPSC group 1 prelims, it is very much clearly mentioned general science, and along with that the applications and the importance of science and technology in the day-to-day life. Is that clear? Now before I go into that one, Telugu medium, English medium? I hope everyone is from English medium. I need not use Telugu, I suppose. Telugu use చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదనుకుంటాను. యూజ్ చేయాలా? Make one point very much clear. Bilingual, English, right? So you talk about the case of general science. So you have got one thing that is general science, at the same time the applications and the importance of science and technology in the day-to-day life, right? So the moment you're talking about general science, you have got physics, you have got chemistry, you have even biology also. Apart from these three things, we need to focus even on science as well as the case of technology. Now in case of physics, the school level, chemistry, the school level physics, both are NF. The moment you're talking about the case of biology, there part of the biology is related to your school level, and part of the biology is related to technology, which you call it as the biotechnology. Because as on today's date, we are talking about the case of the different types of diseases. Now for example, suppose that if at all you talk about the case of COVID, right? So what is the reason for this virus, for this disease? What is the disease? What is the reason for the COVID? Is it a virus or is it a bacteria? Virus. Which virus is responsible for this? Coronavirus is responsible for this. And at the same time, apart from this one, in these particular last 2 years or 3 years, we are hearing even about the case of the different types of diseases also, the new types of virus also. Now for example, you're talking about Zika virus, you're talking about the case of Ebola, Marburg virus, Nipah virus, And apart from this one, we heard even about the case of monkeypox. To be more precise, as on today's date, it's not termed as monkeypox, it is known as mpox. We are not supposed to call that one as monkeypox, we are supposed to call that one as mpox. Now, what is the reason for that particular mpox? Why it is spreading? How it is getting transmitted from one person to the other person? Now, that particular thing is a part of biology, at the same time, the biotechnology. It's not pure biology alone. It's not pure biology alone. It includes even the case of your biotechnology also. At the same time, as on today's date, we're talking a lot about the case of surrogacy. We are hearing a lot about surrogacy. At the same time, assisted reproductive technology. Now, these are the things which come under the part of the biotechnology. Now, first, when talking about the case of TSPSC Group 1 preliminary examination. So, here in case of this one, science and technology here in this case, we'll talk about the case of prelims, at the same time, the case of your paper 5. So, paper 5 in the sense, that is for the case of your Group 1 mains. TSPSC Group 1 mains, you have got one thing which you are calling it as the science and technology, along with that, data interpretation. Data interpretation. Now, here in case of your preliminary part, the topics in general that we discuss here, one particular topic is the space technology. Now, as on today's date, we are hearing constantly a lot about the case of space technology. Now, for example, if you talk about 3 to 4 days back, there was one particular issue related to the case of space technology in India. Any idea about that one? After the notification got released, there was one particular article, there was one particular news in the newspapers regarding space technology in India, particularly related to the case of India. Anyone, any idea about that? Notification release ayyaka. Not before the notification. Notification release 1 week ayindi kada? 1 week loan. I'm talking about after the notification got released. There was one thing in the newspapers. The government of India has approved 100% FDIs in case of space sector. Which means you're talking about the case of the foreign direct investments. Now, as on today's date, you're talking about the case of the investments by the foreign companies in Indian space technology, and how much it is contributed. It is 100%. Now, this particular thing, you can expect this particular question as a part of your Group 1 mains. The reason for that one, as on today's date, the present government of India, they are literally focusing on the space reforms. Now, for that particular space reforms, the last 2 years or 3 years, they were continuously encouraging the private startup companies in India. Private startup companies. Now, for example, suppose that if at all you're talking about the case of Sriharikota, what reflects your mind? Sriharikota lo em undi? What is Sriharikota famous for? Is it space or rocket launching center? Now, we have got one particular rocket launching center in Sriharikota, which is completely owned by ISRO. Right. And that particular rocket launching center is known as Satish Dhawan Space Center. Now, the question is that, do we have any particular private rocket launching stations in India? Right. We have got only one, and even that particular one is not totally operational right now. And that particular one is known as Agnikul Cosmos. Agnikul Cosmos is the first private rocket launching station in India. I'm not talking about the case of rocket here. We are not talking about the case of the launch vehicles. We are talking about the case of rocket launching stations. That is Agnikul Cosmos. Agnikul Cosmos. At the same time, Now, the moment you're talking about the case of PSLV, GSLV. So, the first private rocket launching station in India, that is Agnikul Cosmos. Right. Now, for example, suppose that if at all you're talking about the case of PSLV, or else if at all you're talking about the case of GSLV, it was in news last month. In the month of February, it was in news. Yes or no? Why? Which name of that particular satellite? Exposat. Exposat was launched on January 1st. 1st of Jan 2024, Exposat was launched, but wherein using this particular GSLV, INSAT 3D satellite was launched in the month of February that you're talking about. Now, we'll discuss about these things in detail. Now, the question is that PSLV, GSLV, SSLV, these are the launch vehicles. Now, these particular launch vehicles, are they owned by ISRO or else the private space agencies? ISRO or private space agencies? PSLV, do they belong to Ambani? Do they belong to Adani? Do they belong to Tata? No, they don't belong to any particular private space agency. They are owned by ISRO. At the same time, as on today's date, we are having one particular launch vehicle which we are calling it as Vikram S. Now, this is one particular launch vehicle. Launch vehicles and rockets and both mean the same, but we don't use the word rocket here, we use the word launch vehicle. So Vikram S, this is one particular launch vehicle which is completely owned by a private space agencies. Now, the outline of this one, the bottom line of this one is that as on today's date, the present government of India, it is constantly encouraging the private sector participation in space sector. At the same time, so you have got one particular thing which is known as NSIL, which was started in the year 2019. Now, what is this NSIL? New Space India Limited. New Space India Limited. Now, this particular New Space India Limited is an enterprise of a public sector, can even say it is a public sector enterprise by the government of India. A public sector enterprise by the government of India. And this particular NSIL, as on today's date, it is looking after the manufacturing of SSLV, the manufacturing of PSLV with the assistance of private space agencies. With the assistance of private space agencies. At the same time, the other reform that you talk about in case of your space technology these days, this is one particular thing which is in news for a long time. In space, Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in space. Now, the thing is that why this particular in space was started. Now, the thing is that as on today's date, if you talk about the case of ISRO, ISRO is designing the satellites. First, designing must be done. And after the designing of the satellite must be prepared. That particular work is done by ISRO. And for launching of these particular satellites, we need to have some launch vehicles, nothing but rockets. Now, even that particular launch vehicles, they are designed, they are even manufactured by the case of your ISRO. We don't use the word manufacture, we use the word fabricated. The launch vehicles are designed and fabricated by ISRO. The satellites are designed and fabricated by ISRO. The satellites are launched using launch vehicles by ISRO. And after that one, the signals are received, the signals are analyzed, and then the signals are sent to the respective centers again by ISRO. Now it means that all these particular things are handled only by one particular organization, which are calling it as ISRO. Right from the making of the satellites till the launch, then receive the signals, analyze the signals, each and every task is being done only by one particular agency, which you are calling it as ISRO. But if you talk about the manpower in case of ISRO, it is very, very less. Right? At the same time, as on today's date, the main focus of ISRO is to concentrate on space explorations. You're talking about the case of space explorations. Now, the moment you're talking about the case of space exploration, what do you mean by space exploration? You're talking about the case of Gaganyaan mission. I hope you might have heard about it. ISRO is planning to send some astronauts into space, most probably by 2025. Initially, it was said 2020. Then in the year 2020, since we had COVID, or else we were going through the COVID situation, pandemic situation, it was postponed to 21, 22. Then again, it got delayed, and now it is said most probably by 2025. Now, ISRO wants to focus on missions like Gaganyaan. ISRO wants to focus on missions like Mission Aditya. Last year it was launched. At the same time, we're talking about Mission Shukriyan for Venus planet. At the same time, we are talking about the case of Nisar. There are many number of space exploration projects which ISRO is planning up. Not only that one. As on today's date, we are having International Space Station. Yes, I hope you might have heard about this. International Space Station. Now, this particular International Space Station, it is at a height of almost around 408 kilometers, and this is in the LEO orbit. It is in the LEO orbit. You have got various orbits. You talk about LEO orbit, MEO orbit, GEO orbit. So, depending upon the working of that particular satellite, you place a particular satellite in the designated orbits. Communication satellites, they are placed in the GEO orbit. Navigation satellites, they are placed in the MEO orbit. The satellites which are meant for weather forecasting, forest analysis, forest mapping, desert mapping, for all that particular things, we place a satellite in the LEO orbit. So, International Space Station is present in the LEO orbit at a height of 408 kilometers. But the thing is that India is not a part of ISS. NASA is a part of it. Roscosmos is a part of it. Roscosmos belongs to Russia. CSA is a part of it. Canadian Space Agency. European Space Agency is a part of it. Japan, they are a part of it. Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, they are a part of it. But India is not a part of it. China is having its own space station. The thing is that we are also planning, or else to be more precise, ISRO is planning to have its own space station, Bharat Antariksha Kendra. That is the name of that one, Bharat Antariksha Kendra. And that particular thing, they are going to start working on that one by 2030 or by 2032. They are going to start the work on that one. I am not saying they are going to inaugurate it. They are going to start working on that Antariksha Kendra by 2030 or by 2032. So, ISRO wants to focus on all these particular space explorations and other expeditious projects. Now, for example, I hope you might have heard about Voyager 1, Voyager 2. Now, these are the two space exploration projects which were carried by NASA. And if you talk about the case of Voyager 2, it traveled, or else it crossed even our solar system. It means that the last planet that you're talking about, Neptune, Uranus, Neptune, and after that one we are having some tiny planets, dwarf planets like Pluto and other things. It crossed our solar system and it almost entered into the case of the next solar system. So, in order to carry out what are the things that are present beyond the solar system, which we call the exoplanets. what is present beyond the beyond our solar system. Now for that particular thing, ISRO wants to focus. Now for that particular thing, this particular one is going to play a very, very vital role, because in space is going to play the role of a mediator between ISRO and private companies. Because as on today's date, we know that the private companies in India, they are not technically developed. They need to have some technical assistance, and the technical assistance will be provided by InSpace, and these particular InSpace will get the support from ISRO. So there are many number of developments related to the case of your space science and space technology. Now this is one area, this is one particular field that you talk about. Then you talk about the case of, there is one more sector which you call it as the defense sector. Now even in the case of your defense, even in the case of defense, we have got good number of developments these days. Yes or no? A good number of developments. Now, for example, you talk about the case of INS Vikrant. It is in news. INS Vikrant, right? Yes, INS Sahyadri is one particular thing. At the same time, you talk about the case of even the recently tested weapons. Now, for example, Akash, the second version of Akash has been recently tested. And apart from these particular things, for example, if you talk about the February 24th and 25th, there was one particular military exercise which was conducted in Visakhapatnam, Milan. Milan is one particular exercise. Now there are many number of military exercises which are conducted every year by India along with other countries. That may be the case of Milan, that may be the case of Yuddha Prahar, that may be the case of Yuddha Abhyas, right? At the same time, Garuda Shakti, we have got many number of exercises. But the thing is that, what is the objective? Why we are conducting these particular military exercises along with other countries? There must be some objective. There must be some motive behind conducting these particular exercises. Now at the same time, as on today's date, if you talk about the case of defense sector, you're talking even about one particular program, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now earlier to the case of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we had one program, Make in India. You're not talking about Made in India, you're talking about Make in India. Now as a part of this particular Make in India program, some of the equipment, some of the defense things, they were designed and developed in India with Indian technology. But as on today's date, we are not speaking about Make in India, but as on today's date, we are speaking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now as a part of this particular program, many particular vehicles, many particular defense vehicles, they have been designed and developed indigenously with Indian technology. For example, if you talk about the case of LCH Prachand, now this particular one, it is in news for all the reasons these days. LCH Prachand, at the same time LCA Tejas. I hope you might have heard about Tejas, right? So light combat aircraft Tejas. Now it is in news for all the reasons, because many number of countries as on today's date, they are willing to purchase light combat aircraft Tejas, so which is being designed and fabricated, designed and developed by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. At the same time, we talk about the case of LCH Prachand, light combat helicopter Prachand. Now even this particular one is being designed and developed by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Now the speciality of Prachand, when you're talking about the case of other helicopters like Apache is one particular helicopter. Chinook, that is another helicopter. Rudra is one particular helicopter. Now, when you're talking about these particular helicopters, or else whenever we are comparing Apache and Chinook with Prachand, Prachand is having a different place. It is having a significant place. Now, the reason for that one? So, Prachand is the only helicopter, or else you can even say it is the only combat helicopter in the world, the only combat helicopter in the world which can fly, which can reach to a height of 5,000 feet from the sea level. You're talking about 5,000 feet from the mean sea level. You're talking about the case of almost around 5,000 feet. It's not a small height. Right. Now that is the height to which it can fly. At the same time, it is completely loaded, you can say. So when it is completely loaded, it can move, it can fly to a height of almost around 5,000 feet. And the specialty of this one is that a person sitting in the cabin of light combat helicopter, even if at all there is a nuclear explosion outside, the person inside that one will be safe. He will not be affected to the radiation. At the same time, a person who is sitting inside the cabin of light combat helicopter Prachand, he is safe from all types of the chemical and biological weapons also. Chemical as well as the case of biological weapons. Now, the moment you're talking about the case of the biological weapons or as the case of chemical weapons, now for example, there is one particular chemical weapon which is in the news these days. Or else you can even say the day from which the Russia-Ukraine war has started. Russia-Ukraine war has started. Right, of course, it dates back to almost around 2022 February or March. Now, from that particular date, there is one particular chemical weapon which is constantly in the news. Right, you're talking about the case of the chemical weapons, at the same time talking about the case of your biological weapons. The biological weapon like anthrax is one particular biological weapon. Don't ever say COVID is a biological weapon. Right? It is a weapon which has been used by the China on the world. But the thing is that it is not considered as a biological weapon. It is not considered as a biological weapon. Right, at the same time here in case of this one, we are talking about the chemical weapons. You're talking about the cluster bombs. You're talking about the case of cluster bombs. You're talking about vacuum bombs. Now, the moment you're talking about the case of the chemical weapons as on today's date, the best example for that one is the vacuum bombs that you're talking about. Now, these particular vacuum bombs, for the very first time, they were used by Russia on Ukraine. Now, what is the specialty of this particular vacuum bomb? Now, in general, for example, at any particular place, one particular bomb is exploding. There is a possibility for someone to survive. Am I right? If the bomb is exploding, there is a possibility for someone to survive. Now, in case of your vacuum bombs, the problem is that after the explosion of the bomb takes place, after the bomb gets exploded, after that one, the temperature of that particular place increases drastically. At the same time, the oxygen levels of that particular place keeps on decreasing. Keeps on decreasing. Now, suppose that if at all by any chance, if at all any person is surviving during the case of any particular bomb explosion, then what will be his condition if at all vacuum bombs are used? Bomb pelindi, explode ayindi. Right, he's safe. He has escaped with some minor injuries. But if it is a vacuum bomb, the temperature of the place is increasing and at the same time, oxygen levels are decreasing, then what happens to that particular person? So there in that case, the person is dying inch by inch, minute by minute. Now in earlier case, if the person is dying, he is dying on the spot without knowing any sort of pain. without knowing any sort of things, he's dying simply. But whereas in this particular case of vacuum bombs, the death is for sure. The death is for sure. That is what you're calling it as the chemical weapon. At the same time, there is one particular weapon which is in news these days, sarin. Sarin gas. Now, what is this particular sarin gas? Now, for example, suppose that if at all you're talking about one particular chemical, phosphogen, mustard gas, phosphogen, these two are the poisonous gases which were used for the very first time by Hitler during the Second World War, particularly mustard gas. But as on today's date, we are talking about one more gas which is known as the sarin gas. Now, what is this sarin gas? The moment this particular gas is released in any particular region, for example, I'm talking about, suppose that this particular area, Ashok Nagar, we are very much closer to one particular water body here. We have got Hussain Sagar Lake, and attached to that one we have got even the canals which are linked to the Musi River also. Now, suppose that by chance if sarin gas is being released in this particular region, then in that particular case, first the air will get polluted, and apart from air getting contaminated, air becoming poisonous, apart from that one, even the water body which is present in this particular region, even that will become highly poisonous. It means that the Musi River, till wherever it flows, it becomes completely poisonous. It means the villages, the areas which are dependent upon this particular river, that could be Krishna, that could be Musi, could be any particular river, the complete water channel, it gets polluted. It means that you're not killing one region alone. You're not killing one region. You're trying to destroy one complete region which is based on that particular water channel completely. Complete water channel. It depends upon the amount of the sarin gas that is being released. Now, that particular thing you call it as the case of your biological weapons, chemical weapons. At the same time, as on today's date, we are talking a lot about one more thing, that is the bioterrorism. Bioterrorism. Right? Now, here in case of your bioterrorism, we are talking about the case of the different types of biological weapons. The different types of biological weapons, so which are used for creating disturbance or for destroying a particular region in any particular part of the globe, in any particular part of the world. That is related to the case of bioterrorism. So in case of your defense, in general, whenever we are talking about the case of defense, we always speak about the case of the missiles. Right. Now, for example, this is one particular missile which is in news, BrahMos missile. Now, this particular BrahMos missile is being jointly developed by India and Russia. It is being developed by BrahMos Aerospace Limited. BrahMos Aerospace Limited. DRDO hasn't developed it. So, it is not by DRDO. It is by BrahMos Aerospace Limited. The moment you're talking about the case of BrahMos, BrahMos is a supersonic. BrahMos is a supersonic cruise missile. BrahMos is a supersonic cruise missile, and this particular missile is based on one technology which is known as ramjet propulsion technology. Ramjet propulsion technology. Now, in case of your cruise missiles, we use two technologies. One technology is known as ramjet propulsion technology, and other technology is known as scramjet propulsion technology. Now, the question is that what is the difference between the ramjet propulsion and the scramjet propulsion? At the same time, in case of your missiles, we are talking about ballistic missiles. Agni is a ballistic missile. Prithvi is a ballistic missile. Trishul, Akash, All these are the ballistic missiles. Now the question is, what is the difference between a ballistic and a cruise missiles? What's the difference between these things? At the same time, as on today's date, we have got many number of missiles which are in news. Now, for example, you talk about one missile, that is SANT missile. What is this SANT missile? Why it is in news? Right. Standoff anti-tank missiles. Standoff anti-tank missiles. At the same time, you talk about anti-tank guided missiles. Anti-tank. What do you mean by anti-tank? Any particular missile which is intended to destroy heavy vehicles like tanks, armored vehicles. Armored vehicles ante Rakshana Kavachamu Unna vehicles. Now, once upon a time, armor was used whenever a soldier used to go into any particular battlefield. Pada cinema chusta undam. They wear one cover for the chest, at the same time helmet, at the same time even the case of your hands. So armor was used by the soldiers once upon a time, but as on today's date, even the army tanks, heavy vehicles, they are also protected by the armor. Now, in order to destroy such particular things, they use this particular anti-tank guided missiles. That is one particular case, right? At the same time, we talk about one important topic, that is the nuclear energy. Now, this topic looks quite simple, nuclear energy, because everyone sitting here, you might have heard about nuclear fission, nuclear fusion. Way back in school level itself, we might have discussed about fission and fusion. So fission is splitting of a heavy nucleus into lighter particles. Fusion, two or more lighter elements combining to form a single nucleus. That is what is known as the fusion process. Now, in case of your fission, the best example for that one, nuclear reactors. And in case of nuclear reactors, so we use different types of fuel. One is uranium, other one is thorium, at the same time the plutonium. Now, as on today's date, uranium is in news. The reason why, the uranium 92-238, this is the one which exists from long back, which is known as natural uranium. At the same time, uranium 92-235, which is highly fissile in nature. And at the same time, uranium 92-233, which is less fissile in nature when compared to 235. So we know this, all these three particular isotopes of uranium from long back. But recently, the Japanese scientists, they have discovered one isotope of uranium, that is uranium 92-241, has been recently announced by the Japanese scientists. Now, what are the properties of this particular uranium 92-241? How it is different from 238, 235, 233. At the same time, the moment talking about the case of an atom bomb, in the making of atom bombs, which isotope of uranium is used? 38 or 35 or 33, which one we are using? Right, at the same time, apart from these basic fundamental things, you talk about the case of the nuclear diplomacy, the most important one here. Now, for example, heard about NSG? Nuclear Supplier Group. Nuclear Supplier Group. Is India a part of NSG? Is India a part of NSG? No, India is not a part of Nuclear Supplier Group. Now the question is that why India is not a part of Nuclear Supplier Group? What is the major reason why China is obstructing the path of India into NSG? The major reason is India did not sign Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, we haven't signed it. India hasn't signed it. till date, from 1970 till 2024, almost around 55 years it is, 54 to 55. Even today also India hasn't signed that particular thing. Now that is the reason why China is obstructing the path of India into NSG. Now what is this NSG? What are the advantages to India if India gets membership here? At the same time, why India did not sign NPT till date? What is the reason behind it? At the same time, what is NPT actually? What is Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty? And apart from that one, there is one thing which is in news these days, that is additional protocol. What is this particular additional protocol? And why it is that some of the nuclear reactors in India are under the surveillance of International Atomic Energy Agency. We talk about IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. Why some of the nuclear reactors in India? Now we say that at present there are 7 atomic power stations in India. Out of these particular 7 atomic power stations, some of the atomic power stations, some of the nuclear reactors which are operational, they are under the surveillance of IAEA because of one particular thing which is known as additional protocol. The question is that what is this particular additional protocol? We need to know about that. At the same time, what is this particular treaty? I hope you might have heard about it. CTBT, full form, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Now, even though this particular treaty is introduced into United Nations Security Council, right, even though it is introduced in UNO, it is not yet ratified. It is not yet approved. The question is, why this particular CTBT did not get approval from UNO till date? What is the reason behind it? Which countries haven't signed CTBT till now? Did America sign it? Did China sign it? Did India sign this CTBT? No. America did not sign. China did not sign. India did not sign. Pakistan did not sign. At the same time, the case of even the last month, I suppose, even China, Russia even has it, even that one has withdrawn from CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban. But the question is that what is meant by Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty? That is what we need to discuss in case of nuclear energy. The latest things. At the same time, recently the Maharashtra government, they have signed an MOU with the France government regarding the construction of a nuclear power plant, or else you can even say an atomic power station in Maharashtra. So that particular thing is at Jaitpur. It is not Jaipur, it is Jaitpur in Maharashtra. And the capacity of this particular nuclear power plant is expected to be 9,000 megawatts. 9,000 megawatts. If I'm talking about the case of atomic power stations in India as on today's date, we are having 7 atomic power stations. And out of these 7 atomic power stations, every year we are generating just 7480 megawatts of energy. Only 7,480 megawatts of energy. That is what we are generating every year as on today's date. But if this particular one becomes a reality, only from this particular atomic power station, they are going to generate 9,000 megawatts of energy only from Jaitpur, which is in Maharashtra. At the same time, you talk about the case of the Kudankulam atomic power station, Tamil Nadu. It is in news. Now, why this particular Kudankulam atomic power station is in news? What is the reason for that one? What is the understanding between India and Russia regarding Kudankulam atomic power station? At the same time, recently, Russia have announced that for this particular Kudankulam atomic power station, they are going to export, right? They are going to export the new type of fuel for this particular Kudankulam atomic power station. So what is that particular new type of fuel which is going to be used in Kudankulam power station or else atomic power station? Now that is what we discuss in case of your these things, right? And apart from this, we have got one more topic, that is the case of energy, right? Now as on today's date, that is a very very burning topic, that you can say that. So if at all you're talking about the case of your TSPSC Group 1 mains examination, right? So in case of prelims, you have got space, defense, nuclear energy. Apart from these three things, we have got even energy, and at the same time there is one important topic as on today's date, information and communication technology, ICT. Now are we seeing any sort of developments in the field of IT these days? Yes or no? Good number of developments these days, right? The best example, AI, artificial intelligence, is one particular thing which is in news these days. At the same time, there is one more term which is also in news these days, that is the deep fake technology. I hope you might have heard about this. Now for example, as on today's date, if you talk about deepfake technology, many number of celebrities are becoming, right, they have become subjected to this one. They are facing huge number of problems because of deepfake technology. Now for example, if you talk about recent around 4 days or 5 days back, there was one video that was released based on deepfake technology. And that particular thing, it is related to the case of your Sachin Tendulkar. Not even Sachin. At the same time, even the case of Virat Kohli, even he has become a critic of this particular thing. Now he faced some problems regarding that. Now if you talk about the case of some celebrities, Rashmika Mandana, she was right. She became this one. At the same time, we talk about the case of Alia Bhatt. She was a victim of this deepfake technology, right? Many number of celebrities, they are becoming victims to deepfake technology. So whether you're talking about the case of Rashmika Mandana, or is the case of Alia Bhatt, or is the case of Sachin, or is the case of your Virat Kohli, now the question is that what is this particular deepfake technology and what is the role of this one? So is it only related to creating morphed videos, nude videos of celebrities? No. The capacity of this particular deepfake technology is that it can even be used in manipulation of election results also. Now this particular year, this is the year of elections throughout the world. I'm not saying India. We know that we are going to have elections in the month of May or June, central government elections, at the same time elections in some states. Not only that one, almost around 60 to 70 countries, they are going to face elections this particular year. Now the moment you're talking about the case of deepfake technology, this particular technology can play a very very predominant role in changing the election results in many countries. Now how is this particular technology going to change the result of elections in many countries? Now for example, have you ever seen the Indian Prime Minister playing Dandiya? Right? Now a video was released in the month of October or November wherein the Prime Minister of India is playing Dandiya. But the thing is that it is a fake video. That particular video is totally based on deepfake technology. Now have you ever seen Kim Jong playing guitar and violin? The North Korea Supremo? Right? Have you ever seen Obama playing guitar, singing in musical concert? Now we have got many number of images, we have got many number of videos wherein Kim Jong, Obama, at the same time the Indian Prime Minister and many celebrities, or as you can even say many number of politicians, who are giving live performance in a musical concert. One is singing song, other one is playing guitar, other one is playing drums. The thing is that all these things, they are completely based on one technology which are calling it as the deepfake technology. At the same time, there is one thing which is in news these days, that is the Darknet. Vinay Untar. It has become very much popular these days. Cinema lo kuda chupinchadam modalu pettaru dinni. Darknet. Right. The specialty of this particular Darknet is that only the person who is using this particular Darknet will have an idea that in my system, in my laptop, the software related to the case of Darknet is being installed. And using that particular technology, using that particular software, I can access, I can chat with any other person who is in the other world. Now here, the moment you're using the other world, it means that you're talking about the case of any particular person who is involved in anti-social elements, terrorism. At the same time, the case of your financial frauds, cyber crimes, drug trafficking, women trafficking. Now all these particular things. At the same time, this particular Darknet can be used even in a positive manner also. It can be used for transferring at most confidential details from one person to other person. It can be even used for accessing your Swiss bank account. So generally in your particular laptop, the moment you are having or else accessing Swiss bank account, immediately the cyber department will come to know that so and so person is accessing the Swiss bank account from so and so IP address. But the moment you are accessing your Swiss bank account or any particular bank account in foreign banks using Darknet, or as a case of your dark web, there in that particular case, the cyber department, even they will not be in a position to trace that one very, very easily. Now at the same time, there is one more thing which is known as deep web. Now what is the difference between Darknet and deep web? Now this particular Darknet, this is also known as dark web. So we'll speak like this. What is the difference between dark web and deep web? Are they the same? Are they different? Both are totally different. What is the difference between dark web and deep web? At the same time, as on today's date, in case of information technology, we are constantly speaking about Web 3.0. Now, what is this particular Web 3.0 and what is the present one that we are using, Web 2.0? Web 3.0 is a future. Web 2.0 is the present one that we are using. And Web 1.0, it was used probably when you were kids or when you were not born even. I'm talking about the early 1990s. From 1991 or else from 1994 till 1998, this particular Web 1.0 was used. Probably you were not born or probably you were maybe infant babies at that time. So at that particular point of time, Web 1.0 was used. And everyone, we have seen Web 2.0. Right, now for example, if you talk about the case of YouTube, as on today's date in case of YouTube, we like a video, we dislike a video, you share a video, you post a comment on that particular video. Right, now all these things can be done in the Web 2.0 era. In case of Web 1.0, it was not at all possible. At the same time, in case of Web 2.0 earlier days, I'm talking about 2001, 2002, 2005, 2006, 2008, till that particular time, liking, disliking, commenting, right, it was not possible even in case of your YouTube also. Now, Web 2.0, day by day, it is becoming very, very user-friendly. As on today's date, everyone is able to do a short video and post it. Earlier, it was not possible, but as on today's date, YouTube has become very much user-friendly that everyone is creating some videos. And I think many of them, they are even creating or just generating some amount also based on that one. Right. Some people are making good amount of money based on these short videos. Right. Now that is the case of your Web 2.0. Now the question is that what is Web 3.0? When we are going to use it? At the same time, you talk about the case of 5G. Now the question is that, is 5G implemented in India at the grassroots level? Suppose that if I put the question like this, is 5G introduced in India? The answer is yes. And it is implemented in India only in selected places, selected cities, right? Selected cities. You're not talking about the case of the towns, right? 5G is not introduced in towns, 5G is not introduced in rural areas. It is only introduced in selected cities. Now the government of India, as on today's date, it has requested all the telecom companies to prepare a roadmap for 6G. Now the question is that, what is the difference between 4G, 5G and 6G, which will be introduced by 2030? By 2030. Now in case of 4G, we are getting some speed. In case of 5G, the speed will be increased. Right, many people are waiting for that one so that they can watch the IPL matches without buffering. Right, the month of your, it's a very, very good season. IPL is going to start, I think, right? So you have your examination on the June 9th. At the same time, unfortunately, this IPL is going to extend from March to April or May. Right. So there, in that particular case, you want to watch that IPL without buffering. For that, you require 5G. So what is the basic difference between 4G, 5G and 6G? At the same time, we are talking about the Internet Protocol version 4, IPv4, as well as the case of IPv6. What is this IPv4? What is this IPv6? Now, for example, as on today's date, we are talking a lot about the case of your local area network, which we are familiar. At the same, in simple terms, we call it a LAN. At the same time, we have got the case of your metropolitan area network, wide area network. Apart from LAN, MAN and WAN, we have got even one more thing, that is BAN, B-A-N, body area network. Body area network. So any particular device which an individual is carrying, that may be you, that may be me. And the question is that, how many of the devices that we are carrying can be connected wireless? For example, suppose that if you talk about yourself or myself, I carry a mobile. That particular mobile can be connected. I'm wearing a smartwatch. That can be connected. Suppose that if a person is having a laptop or tab, that can be connected. At the same time, the Bluetooth, that can be connected. Now, these are the things in general that we carry. Now, apart from these particular things, suppose that if at all a person is wearing this glasses which called as virtual reality, right? The 3D glasses, the virtual reality, even those particular things, they can be connected. Now, all these particular things, they are a part of one thing which are calling it as the body area network. At the same time, you're talking about the case of connected cars. Connected cars. I think you might have watched in some movies. You are sitting in a car, or as a person is sitting in a car, he is sitting in the driver's seat. But that particular person who is sitting in the driver's seat, he is not in a position to change the direction of the car. He is not in a position to increase the speed or reduce the speed. Why? Because the car is hijacked by someone else. So hijacking in the sense, literally someone is taking it away. But here in case of your modern day cars, you are sitting in the car, you are sitting in the driver's seat, the steering is in your hand, your legs are on the accelerator, your legs are on the brake. But the thing is that you cannot control that particular car, because that particular car is operated by someone else sitting somewhere. He may be behind you in the next vehicle, or else he may be sitting in his office, or else he may be at home. But the thing is that the car steering is completely controlled by that someone else. You're talking about the case of connected cars. You're talking about the case of the connected industries. The future generation is that you are sitting at your home and you can operate any particular machinery which is in your factory. Because even that particular machineries are going to have some IP address. Now for example, simple example, as on today's date we are having some air conditioners. You are sitting in the car, you are outside, you are able to reach your home in 10 minutes. Can we turn on the AC at home? మీరు కార్లో ఉన్నారు, బయట ఉన్నారు, ఇంటికి ఇంకో 10 నిమిషాలు ఇంటికి వెళ్తారు. కార్లో ఉన్నప్పుడే ఇంట్లో ఉన్న ఏసీ ఆన్ చేయొచ్చా, చేయలేమా? చేయొచ్చు. ఆఫీస్లో ఉన్నారు, ఇంట్లో ఉన్న వాషింగ్ మెషిన్ ఆన్ చేయగలుగుతున్నామా, చేయడం లేదా? రైట్, యు ఆర్ సిట్టింగ్ ఇన్ ద ఆఫీస్, but you are operating a washing machine which is at home. You are able to do that particular thing. No, all these is nothing but to give the future things that we are talking about. ఇవన్నీ ఇంకా కామన్ మ్యాన్ రీచ్కి రాలేదు, ఇంకా కామన్ మ్యాన్ రీచ్కి ఇంకా రాలేదు. బట్ ద థింగ్ ఇస్ దట్, సో economically rich families or as a case of higher end families, so they are already using this particular technologies. లేదా సింపుల్ థింగ్, ఈ రూమ్ నుంచి బయటికి వెళ్ళిపోగానే ఆల్ ది లైట్స్, ద ఫ్యాన్స్, ఆర్ దే టర్నింగ్ ఆఫ్, yes or no? Smart homes, we are talking about the case of your smart homes. In the future there is no question of locking, there is no need of locking your home. The moment you close the door, it is closed, unless and until again you put your pin number in that one, it will not open. You're talking about the case of your smart homes, you're talking about the connected cars, right? All those things, they are a part of your this particular things. IPv4, IPv6, Internet Protocol version 4, Protocol version 6, right? No, at the same time, we have got many number of things in case of the information communication technology, right? For example, there is one more thing which is being introduced in the recent times. You talk about the case of IT rules, information technology rules, which were introduced last year. The IT rules of 2021, IT rules of 2023, the communication rules, the communication bill. Communication bill was passed in the recent session of the parliament. Now what is this particular communication bill? What we have got to do with that? Now all those particular things you need to discuss, or else we'll be discussing that one in case of communication technology. Right. So here in this case, the role and impact of science and technology, this is the very first thing that we discuss here. And then classical and emerging areas. In case of your mains part, we have got one topic, the classical and emerging areas of science and technology, particularly the value addition by science and technology, current science and technology developments in India, importance of science and technology as an engine for national development, industrial development and urbanization. Now here in this case, this particular topic is totally related to the case of the modern day science and technology. Now whether you're talking about the case of the nanotechnology, whether you're talking about the case of the robotics, whether you're talking about the case of artificial intelligence, now how these particular things, they are going to play a very vital role in the development of science and technology, at the same time in the development of any particular nation. That is the very first topic. This is in case of your mains mind. At the same time, you talk about the case of the national policy, right? So national policy of science and technology, the changes in policy from time to time, technology missions, ICT basics in computers, robotics, nanotechnology and communication. So first you talk about the case of the changes in policy from time to time. You talk about the case of the 4 different policies. We have a particular policy which was introduced in 1958. You call it as the National Science Policy. Then after that, in the year 1983, we had one policy, National Technology Policy. Then in the year 2003, we had one more policy, National Science and Technology Policy. First one, simply Science Policy. Second one, Technology Policy. The third one, the combination of the first and second, that is Science and Technology Policy. And then we had fourth one, that is 2013, National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy. science, technology, and innovation policy. Now, these are the 4 different policies which were introduced after independence. Now, the question is that why these policies were introduced? What are the objectives of these particular policies? What are the objectives of these particular policies? 58, 83, 2003, 2013. There is one more policy which is also ready. The draft of that one is ready. So it is dated back to 2020, but it is not yet approved by the cabinet. So that is the reason why we are simply saying that the draft of that one is ready. So what are these particular policies? What are the objectives of these particular policies? At the same time, after the introduction of these particular policies, did we achieve anything? That is what is more important. Did we achieve anything? The desired objectives, the desired goals, how far we have achieved, how far we have reached those particular objectives as well as the case of the goals. And then you talk about the case of the technology missions. Now, heard about Sham Petroda? Sham Petroda. Anyone? To be more precise, Sham Petroda, he belongs to Congress, if you talk about the political party. And he is a very, very close associate of Gandhi family. Now, why I'm speaking about that particular person? Sham Petroda is considered to be the father of technology missions in India. Whatever the technology missions that have been introduced, it is the result of his think tank. It is the result of his ideas. It is the result of his visions. Now, for example, maybe probably you might remember school books, government school textbooks, last page you find one advertisement. Rashtriya Aksharashyata Mission, Saksharta Abhiyan, Rashtriya Saksharta Abhiyan anesi, National Literacy Program anesi, ఒకప్పుడు టీవీలో అడ్వర్టైజ్మెంట్స్ కూడా వచ్చాయి. అలాగే స్కూల్ టెక్స్ట్ బుక్స్ బ్యాక్ సైడ్ లేదా లాస్ట్ కవర్ పేజ్ పైన యూ యూస్ టు హ్యావ్ వన్ అడ్వర్టైజ్మెంట్. సో ద చిల్డ్రన్ ఇన్ ద ఏజ్ గ్రూప్ ఆఫ్ less than 14 years, each and everyone must go to school. Primary education is must mandatory for each and everyone. So that is a part of this particular national literacy mission. At the same time, there are many number of missions. You talk about literacy mission, you talk about the case of national food mission, water mission. And as on today's date, the moment I'm talking about the case of the technology missions, in the year 2020, the government of India has approved 9 technology missions. And these particular technology missions, they are linked with sustainable development goals. Heard about SDGs? SDG ennunnai mottam. Sustainable development goals ennunnai mottam. 17 SDGs unnai. And all these particular 9 technology missions, they are linked with these particular 17 sustainable development goals. At the same time, each and every particular technology mission is associated or else is being handled by one particular ministry or one particular department. You're talking about the various departments, you're talking about the various ministries. Now, for example, I'll just give one particular example here. You talk about the case of National Digital Literacy Mission. Digital literacy. Now, what is the simple application of that one? What is the objective of that one? Now, I hope everyone, you might have been to ATM for withdrawing cash. Now, if you remember, a few years back, whenever you visited ATM, each and everything that was displayed there, it was only in English. If you remember that one. But as on today's date, the moment you insert your ATM card, the first option is choose the language. Now, this particular option was not available earlier. Now you are having an option wherein you can choose Telugu, Hindi, or in the case of English. So as long as we are in the Telugu states, you can be having 3 languages. If you go to the case of Karnataka, you'll be able to find English, Hindi and Kannada. If you go to the case of your Tamil Nadu, you'll be able to find English, Hindi as well as the case of your Tamil there. So you are giving 3 options there. At the same time, even in your mobiles also, each and every particular option as on today's date, it is available in English. And apart from that one, some people will be using their mobile in Telugu also. Is it possible? Is it possible to set language in the mobile? Right? Mana kanipiche options evaithe unnayo ivanni Telugulo set chesukocha cheyalema. That can be Telugu, that can be Hindi, that can Punjabi, could be any particular thing. So there in that particular case, there is one particular mission which are called the digital literacy mission. Based on that one, the thing is that the government of India is trying to bridge the gap between the haves and have-nots on Antarctica. The government of India is trying to bridge the gap between the English known people and the people who doesn't know English. Technology is not meant only for the English medium students. Technology has to be used, it has to be implemented by each and every particular person, whether he knew English, whether he doesn't know English. That is one particular thing. So it is similarly, you have almost around 9 technology missions. 9 technology missions. Then after that, you got the space programs. So you have got the INSAT series of satellites, IRS, EduSat, as well as the case of Chandrayaan. Nothing but the future exploration missions that you're talking about. And then the application of space technology in India with reference to education, agriculture, climate change, right? Cyclone, tsunami, natural and man-made disaster management. Now all these are the applications of Earth observatory satellites. Now in case of satellites, we classify satellites into different things. Earth observatory satellites. Earlier they were known as the remote sensing satellites. Then after that one, you're having the communication satellites. Communication satellites, earlier they were known as INSAT satellites, Indian National Satellite. At the same time, you are having navigation satellites. Now, are we using navigation today? Right? And I strongly feel that, suppose that if at all America stops sharing that GPS with India, then immediately the main effect will be on the persons, the families who are completely dependent on Amazon or Uber or Swiggy. As on today's date in India, we have got a good number of families who are dependent on Amazon delivery, Flipkart delivery, Swiggy, Zomato, Uber and all these particular things. And all these things, they are working completely based on the GPS. And that particular GPS is provided by NASA, or else to be more precise, United States of America. So you're talking about navigation satellites. At the same time, the government of India, as on today's date, we are developing, or else you can even say ISRO is developing our own navigation system which is known as NAVIC. NAVIC is one particular navigation system which is under the development process by ISRO, and it is going to replace the GPS facility by America very soon. Now that is what we discuss here in case of your space science. Then energy resources. Energy resources. The moment talking about the case of your energy resources, we classify these things into two things. One is the renewable energy and the other one is non-renewable energy. Renewable and non-renewable. So the moment talking about the case of your renewable energy resources, solar is a renewable one, wind is a renewable one. So apart from these things, right, so you talk about even the case of your tidal energy, biofuels, all these are the renewable sources. And the moment you're talking about the case of your coal or as the case of your petroleum, they are considered as the non-renewable energy resources. Now, for example, if you talk about the case of electric vehicles in India, now are we seeing a good number of electric vehicles in India these days? right? Maybe in terms of your two-wheelers or in terms of three-wheelers, or else in case of your four-wheelers, even the case of buses also, we are having some electric vehicles. Now, why the government of India as on today's date is giving priority or importance to electric vehicles? Right? To reduce the carbon pollution. The question is that why we need to reduce the pollution? Do we have any particular international agreements for that one? We are committed to, India is committed to net zero carbon emissions by 2070, and to reduce the carbon emissions to present day, so almost around 50% by 2050. Reduce the carbon dioxide emissions to 50% by 2050, net zero carbon emissions by 2070. Now, in order to achieve that particular target, electric vehicles are important. Hydrogen based vehicles are very, very important. Now, as on today's date, we are talking about the case of green hydrogen, blue hydrogen. Now, what is this particular green hydrogen? What is blue hydrogen? At the same time, in case of energy resources, as on today's date, the most important one, or is the burning topic that you can say, carbon capture, utilization and storage. CCUS technology. Carbon capture, utilization and storage. This is the one which is, as on today's date, it is a burning topic, you can say. At the same time, you talk about one more thing, that is the case of your carbon tax. Now, what is this carbon tax? What is carbon capture, utilization and storage? At the same time, you're talking about the case of the biofuels here. Now, even in case of your biofuels also, we have got the first generation biofuels, the second generation biofuels, third generation, and the fourth generation biofuels. What are the various generations of biofuels? Which materials are used in case of your biofuels? That forms this particular topic. And apart from this one, this is the one which is in news these days. Solar energy. Why? Because the Prime Minister of India is constantly announcing various number of schemes, various number of programs which are related to the case of solar energy. Right, we have got one particular thing, one world, one sun, one grid. This is a statement which was given by the Prime Minister of India in COP26 summit. One world, one sun, one grid. And for that particular thing, ISRO is going to develop a scientific calculator for that particular thing. At the same time, you're talking about the case of International Solar Alliance. ISA, International Solar Alliance. Initially, it was started only by India and France. But as on today's date, there are almost around 100 plus countries. And out of that 100 plus countries, 80 countries have ratified this International Solar Alliance. Now, what is the objective of ISA? Where is the headquarters of this particular ISA? Now, that is what we discuss in case of energy resources. Then, the modern trends in applications of knowledge of science. Now, this particular thing is completely related to the case of your biotechnology part. Right, the complete thing related to the case of biotechnology. And at the same time, here in this case, from your preliminary examination point of view, whether you're talking about the TSPSC or APPSC, from the preliminary point of view, vaccines, this is one particular thing which is very important. Because we are getting a good number of questions even on vaccines, at the same time the different types of diseases. Now, how many types of vaccines do we have? We have got 6 different types of vaccines. 6 different types of vaccines. Inactivated vaccine, live attenuated vaccine, mRNA vaccine, toxoid vaccines. Right, at the same time, viral vector vaccine. Right, at the same time, the case of you have got one more, that is the conjugate vaccines. altogether 6 different types of vaccines. And at the same time, Mission Indradhanush related to vaccination program. And as a part of Mission Indradhanush, how many vaccines are given as on today's date? 7 or 14? 7 or 14. Now it is 14. Right? So we have got some targets which are related to that one at the same time. So there are some diseases which have to be eliminated from India either by 2024 or by 2025. So that is what we discuss in case of this one. Right? So this is about something which is related to the case of your TSPSC part here. So TSPSC preliminary examination as well as the case of the case of your TSPSC Group 1 mains examination. Then, so one thing is that you don't find much difference here between TSPSC as well as the case of APPSC. So you don't find much difference in case of the science and technology part for any of these particular competitive examinations. Right, now if we talk about the case of APPSC Group 2 mains. So APPSC you are having two things, Group 1 as well as the case of your Group 2. APPSC Group 1 prelims and APPSC Group 2 mains. Right, two things here totally. So you have got one thing here, one is the case of TSPSC. So TSPSC Group 1 preliminary examination, TSPSC Group 1 mains examination syllabus we have already discussed. Now the moment you're talking about the case of APPSC, right? So in case of APPSC Group 1 preliminary examination, at the same time the case of the Group 1 mains examination syllabus almost the same with respect to the case of TSPSC. You don't find much changes there. And now coming to the case of APPSC Group 2 mains point of view. In case of your APPSC Group 2 preliminary examination, there is no science and technology. Only in case of Group 2 mains we have got science and technology. Now what do we have in case of APPSC Group 2 mains? Right? So here in this case, again we have got the same topics here. Technology missions, science and technology policies, at the same time innovations, emerging technologies and frontiers. So you don't have much difference. Now this is the one that we have already in case of your TSPSC Group 1 mains as well as the case of prelims also. Then space technology. So in case of space technology we have got the launch vehicles, the recent Indian satellite launches, applications, Indian space science missions. Same thing even here also. And then you talk about the case of the defense. So in case of defense we have got DRDO, at the same time the integrated guided missile development programs by DRDO, at the same time the latest weapons which are developed by DRDO in the recent times. And then you talk about information communication technology, Digital India mission, e-governance programs, right? And finally you have got the case of your this one even, cyber security concerns related to the case of your nation. You talk about the IT rules, cyber security laws. At the same time in case of your nuclear technology we have got the nuclear reactors, nuclear power plants, at the same time the applications of the radioisotopes. And then finally again the energy management topics here. Now all these are the topics that you discuss about the case of science and technology, whether it is Group 1, Group 2, whether it is TSPSC or is the case of APPSC. The only difference is that in case of TSPSC Group 1 mains, science and technology is for 100 marks. And in case of APPSC Group 1 mains, it is one complete sole different paper for 150 marks. And in case of APPSC Group 2 mains, SNT is for 75. And in that particular 75, you have got two topics. We have got two topics from science and technology, two topics from environment, one topic is from biotechnology, right? The thing is that there is a huge amount of advertisement outside. Many people keep on saying that APPSC Group 2 means biology undi, biology లేదు అందులో. It is a wrong propaganda. It is a wrong news which is being circulated there. It is not biology, it is biotechnology. Right? It is not biology alone. My biology, and again, you don't start open and reading your school textbooks. It is not that biology. So there in that particular case, you're talking about the case of biotechnology. At the same time, the health programs which are started by the government of India. It is not biology. I'm repeating that one. It is not biology. We have got 2 topics exclusively from science and technology. 2 topics exclusively from environment. And 1 particular topic is completely from the biotech part. Keep that particular thing in mind. Now, to conclude this, what is the way or else how you are supposed to prepare for science and technology? Huge amount of syllabus. To be more precise, you just have got almost around 100 days in your hand. Am I right? March, April, May, 90 days and June 9. So if you count from today, I think if you count from today, it's almost exactly 100 days from today if you count. Right? And today I'm fortunate because today is the National Science Day. And we are very much fortunate that we have started your classes on the National Science Day. Now the question is that, why this particular National Science Day is being observed? A Raman effect. Right, good. Now what is the theme for this particular year National Science Day? Science Day is also having some theme. Right? So for today's work, so try to find the theme for February 28 National Science Day 2024. What is the theme of this particular day? So for this particular year, please find the answer for that particular thing. Right. So the thing is that how we are supposed to prepare, or else what you're supposed to read. First and foremost thing, what I suggest is that you need to go through the newspapers. So newspaper, which one? Hindu? At the same time, Indian Express if available. Best paper, Hindu. Don't go for your other papers. Don't go for Deccan Chronicle or else Times of India. I don't suggest those 2 papers. Those 2 papers are good for colors, nothing for content. Right? Go for Hindu, at the same time Indian Express if possible. That is one thing. At the same time, the material which is provided by the institute. Right? The material which is provided by the institute. So whatever is the material that they are providing, at the same time the magazine which is available or else which is being published by the institute. Along with that, the classroom notes. And along with that, you can even go for the Telugu Academy book. That particular book is good for science and technology. Right? So that is one thing that I said, don't rely on any other books. The questions that you get will be mostly from the Telugu Academy. Now updated ones anyway, because this is technology, anyway we have to go for updation. And the moment you are going for the case of your updation there in that particular case, definitely we have to depend only on newspapers or as a case of the current affairs magazines. That is the only thing. And at the same time, one thing before I conclude, any particular practice material that you are doing, see that the questions that you are practicing, it is not just a one-word answer. Now gone are those particular days wherein the question was in 1 line or 2 lines or 3 lines and the answers were simple words. It's not that. Now you have to choose an answer from 4 or 5 statements. And out of that particular 4 or 5 statements, sometimes either one statement is correct. Sometimes that may be 3 or 4 statements may be correct. Sometimes all the given statements may be even wrong also. Now a few years back or else there was a time when the answers were in a single word. But as on today's date, the options are not in single word anymore. You have to read each and every particular sentence. It means that when you're attempting one particular question, it means that you're reading 5 sentences there. At least 5 sentences. Out of that particular one, out of that particular 4 given options, the answer may be A and B, or else ABC, or else ABCD, or else all the 4 may be wrong even. Now, you need to prepare to that particular level. Right, at the same time, I tell you this. Those who are, suppose that if at all you have started your preparation right now for Group 1 prelims, you must be giving 1000%, not 100%. Now, the reason for that one, already from the last 2 years, many people are fighting for that one. From April 2022, many people are preparing, many people already written, they have qualified once. Again, the examination have been cancelled twice. So reasons whatsoever. But the thing is that there are some aspirants who are seriously fighting for this particular job from 2 years, or maybe even more than that. It means that they are more qualified when compared to you people, or else when compared to any person who is starting his preparation today itself, or else after the notification has been released. In simple terms, you are all the freshers. So if at all they are reading for 6 hours, then you need to double the time, maybe for around 12 hours or 15 hours you are supposed to read, in order to compete with those particular students. You can clear your preliminary examination. That's not a big deal. You sit for 100 days. You define your time properly. Keep your mobile away for few days. Definitely you can crack your prelims. But the question is that for the mains part, answer writing is important. How you present yourself, that is what is more important. How you present your way, how you present your ideas, how do you present your thoughts, right? So where to conclude, how to conclude, what should be the body of that one, how you are supposed to start an answer. Now this particular thing is very, very important for the mains point of view. Now unless and until you do not practice this one, it is not going to be an easy part for you people, right? సో క్లాస్ రూమ్కి వచ్చామా, కూర్చున్నామా, వెళ్ళామా, క్లాస్లో పడుకున్నామా, రైట్? సో సీ దట్ యూ పీపుల్ ఆర్ స్లీపింగ్ for at least 4 hours in a day, not more than that. 4 to 4.5 hours, not more than that. Right? You sit for long hours. Then only you can compete with the real aspirants, not with the fake aspirants. Unfortunately, in case of aspirants, you have got fake and even the real aspirants also. And the moment you want to fight with the real aspirants, so you have to give the best. That's it. Right? So any doubts, anything that you want to discuss? Anyone? Right? Thank you guys.